Yes. Good afternoon. Hey, Chris.
Hey Jay, how are you doing today?
Oh man,
Happy Tuesday
happy
and
first Tuesday of 2025.
2025. That
Cheers to
is
you.
what I was. Yeah, cheers to that. Happy 2025, everyone. Welcome to the Practice Playbook, the show where we help firm owners and wannabe firm owners navigate the road for their modern firms. I am Chris Eno, as it says right there, not in a thumbs down way, but in a like right there way. And then, he's Jay Kimmelman, and his name's down over there. And we are the hosts of your show. Last week, before we got to the end of the year, we talked about a few big things in the news. We talked through benches shut down and acquisition situation. We talked about the on again, off again nature of BOI and everything that was going on there in the few weeks prior. Um, it's still off, right, Jay? Like I'm pretty sure it's
Yeah,
off.
it's still off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we also highlighted a handful of cybersecurity issues, particularly a hack at the Treasury, that probably should make you aware and be aware of going forward of protecting yourself, your firm, and your clients. And so obviously these things can all have big impacts. This week, like we just talked about, it's a new year, and a new year means a new you. Uh, and so we're going to talk through some things that you should be planning to do this year in order to facilitate a better work-life balance and improve your mental health. Because we've talked about that before on this show, and we've talked about that in the accounting industry more broadly, mental health and making sure that you're facilitating that balance between work and life is critical for accountants, and especially as we head into this tax season and busy time of year. It's really important to be really prepared, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get to that, let's get to the news. This week in the news, Jay, did you know that the deadlines are on the way? Those extended deadlines for people that got filing relief. Not everybody.
Yes.
So this is not like Carolina and you there in Florida, but for a lot of other areas in the United States, including some parts of Texas and Louisiana, that
Yep.
did get some relief. That relief got pushed to February 3rd as their filing deadlines, and that is not that far away. So if you're in those relief areas and you pushed off your filings, know that those deadlines are looming, and so make sure that you get on that, and that of course if you have clients that were impacted by those filing deadline extensions, that you're being responsive and aware of that as well.
Yeah, and like you said, those of us here in Florida, we have an extended deadline. I think it's May.
May, I think so as
Yeah,
well.
which is scary. Yeah.
Yeah, a deadline
It,
for
it,
next
it,
year
it
that's
it's
after this year.
it's bringing back the days of COVID era where it was like one long
Are there
year for
deadlines?
three tech seasons. So
Yeah,
let's
right.
let's let's go past that really quick. Let's go.
Let's hope so. But again, here in parts of southern Texas, I think it is in Louisiana. There were spots all over the United States. Actually, there was some Washington, some Philadelphia, or some Pennsylvania, some Michigan. Like it's like all kinds of different stuff that resulted in some relief. So know that those deadlines are upcoming. So be aware of that. Jay, also in IRS related news, it sounds like there were some proposals to update Circular 230. Now, I only know Circular 230 is the little like thing that always went out in my RSM like signature page where I didn't even control it. It just was like in there and it said Circular 230, not advice or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I know that the proposals around this, like there's some things that matter and some things that maybe don't. But I do think, or at least the thing I wanted to highlight here as a proposed change is that under the updated proposed news circular 230, you can no longer have contingent fees. Now I don't know how many people were doing that anyway, Jay, but going forward, you definitely can't.
Well, those that weren't
um,
CPAs were doing contingent fees. I mean, we
oh,
weren't.
okay,
At least here in
yeah,
Florida, we weren't allowed to along the way. But yeah,
yeah.
that's a big thing. And the other thing was you couldn't make claims with 230.
Oh, okay,
Or maybe it was the Florida CPA rules. I could be very wrong,
right.
but it's really funny because in the Intuit commercial last night that I saw, get your $4,000 credit. It's like, You get your $4,000 refund. It's like driving around Orlando from January 15th through April 15th. It's like, make sure you get your $6,000 refund. Call this number. Every street corner is blanketed with them. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, updated circular 230 stuff may stem a little bit of that craziness
Yeah.
that ends up being contingency based,
Let's hope
because that
so.
won't be allowed anymore. But we will see. Yeah, I know historically, like contingent fees are a big no-no for CPAs. I know that's definitely the case in the insurance space. Like you can never do it there. But I wasn't sure if that applied also to like other things in other areas as well. I know. What button did you press, Jay? You made me big. um, Now, in other like tax related news, there the new administration is heading into office in another 3 weeks or so. So later in this month. And with control of all three branches of government, they are hoping, and this is what at least I have read in a couple spots, they are hoping to have a big tax bill passed by May. Now that seems a little bit like a stretch because I know that the incoming president, he has interest in doing like all of his things all in one huge bill. I
Right.
think that might take a little bit longer than May because there are a lot of different things that are important to this administration that they're going to want to get captured, and they don't have a lot of wiggle room because I think their House majority is pretty narrow, which means they have to get everybody's buy-in on everything, and that may be difficult to do. And
Lots of
so,
pork. There's gonna be lots of pork in that bill.
probably so.
But yeah, the way the mainstream news is talking about it, they want to get it done the first week he's in office. Set
Yeah,
up that first 100 days. It's like, I don't know about that.
it's gonna be a big stretch, but knowing that the intention is to have something done by May does give you the ability to do some planning toward the later half of the year, because hopefully by that May timeframe we'll have at least the framework of what people are intending to do, so that we can. It may not be the final version. There may be, I don't know, there may be something in Nebraska where Nebraska gets a couple benefits or whatever it is because they need to sway one guy or another. Who knows exactly how it'll shake out in the end? But I think you'll have a pretty good framework of exactly what to expect from a high level around the middle of the year. So be on the lookout for that. And then finally, in IRS and tax related news, or kind of tax related news, I mentioned that the BOI is off still, but that's for now because the Department of Justice has sent that case on up to the Supreme Court with the hope that the Supreme Court will shut down that BOI injunction. I don't think they should hold their breath on that, but we will see how that goes, and we'll see what the final. Again, this is a on again, off again, on again, off again thing, and so it's possible that there will be some additional activity there, but it's definitely something that you want to at least pay attention to, and that obviously we'll bring to you here as soon as we get a final verdict on it. We mentioned a long time ago that this was probably where this was headed, to a DOJ case in front of the Supreme Court, and lo and behold, here we are. So not a big surprise that we've gotten here, but it really is annoying in the meantime because it does make it really difficult to provide like really good advice because you don't know exactly what to expect. And not surprisingly, we still don't have 100% certainty, but we're getting closer to where there's not going to be any pushback because there's nowhere else to go. So we'll continue to monitor that. It may also be like May or June before that happens, maybe even later. I know the Supreme Court sessions are sometimes later in the year, so we will see on that as well. Lots of stuff putting us in limbo in the tax space. Jay, anything that I didn't think about or didn't see in the news this week that we should be thinking about from tax or other IRS related news?
Not specifically, but talking about the Supreme Court, there was chatter earlier. I mean, it might have been last week that there was something going to be hitting the court in January, and
Oh yeah.
looking for a quick resolution. I'm not sure if it was the BOI or not.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. All right.
I know they usually do two sessions in January and in June, or they start in January and June or something like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, we'll
Well,
see.
we'll see. Yeah, I'm sure that once that's decided, there's no question that it'll be in the news, probably, and we'll see what comes out of that. And the expectation too, I know that this is maybe some really really forward looking stuff, and certainly not going to be resolved now. But as there are future challenges to IRS related things, like we talked about around like April or May,
Mm-hmm.
as the Supreme Court was issuing some of those first sets of rulings last year. Um, because of the rulings that they made, their IRS stuff now is going to progress through the courts,
Mm-hmm.
and so you'll probably see more stuff heading through the courts that ends up taking more time to resolve, and it may be positions on certain expected accounting or how things are handled from an overall taxing perspective. So there may be a lot of things that go through the courts over the next few years. I know that the tax courts, we were talking about this earlier today, the tax courts already have a 2 or 3 year backlog. So as more cases flood that, it's just going to continue to get worse and worse. So we'll as those things ever get resolved, should they, we'll be here to talk about them, and we'll bring them to your attention as they're necessary and valuable to firm owners.
Yeah, and as the Doge takes over and gets in play,
Yeah,
we don't know what's going to happen with the IRS at that point.
no,
It's
right,
one of
no
those
idea.
agencies that we know Trump is not in favor of. So does it
Right.
just go away? I mean, what happens? So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, it will. It will be. And again, we'll be right here to talk about it as it does.
Yes, we will.
Whatever happens, we'll be here to talk. In other accounting news, in the acquisition and financing corner, an exciting thing happened. Jay, I hadn't seen this in the news, but I think it actually happened today. But Citron, which is an accounting firm that had previously had some private equity infusion, sold that share. So they sold that to the big money monster in
Mm-hmm.
Blackstone, right? Which is if you think about private equity, they're the first people that come to my mind, because I think they are maybe the largest private equity group out there. And so Blackstone got into the accounting space this week, in by buying off the portion of a company that was owned by a private equity group separately. And so now you can start to see that activity happen, right? This is what we talked about before. Private equity, when they get in, they want to make it look more profitable, and then they want to get out for big margins. And at least my understanding from the article that I read about this is that Blackstone paid at an enterprise value of $2 billion. So that's a that's a big stake they took. So we'll see how that continues, but my expectation is that New Mountain Capital, which is the people that were in there before, they are pretty pleased by their exit strategy here, and if they are, then other private equity groups are going to want to be as well on a going
Mm-hmm.
forward basis. So, like we've talked about on this show several times before, private equity is definitely here in the accounting space, and from my perspective, it's here to stay, and it's just going to continue to be there.
For sure.
Uh, and so that means that you, as a firm owner, need to be really thoughtful about, is that something that you want to do? And what are the impacts that has on both your company if you are doing it, and also your company if you're not? Because somebody's going to be. There's going to be investment everywhere. And so you want to make sure that you're really thinking about how that impacts you on a going forward basis. And I'm sure Jay and I will talk about that more in 2025, because I know that that's going to be a topic that's on the top of a lot of people's minds, and especially as you and CPAs in general, as they continue to age, there's a lot of need to exit.
Yes.
be that from burnout, which we'll talk about later today, or from just aging out. So there's a lot of different ways to structure those types of things, and those are concepts and topics that we'll talk about more as we get deeper and deeper into 2025. Also, in accounting news this week, the PCAOB, they're back in the news. They imposed $35 million in fines in 2024 at least, and I think most of those fines were issued in the first half of the year, so it may be even more than that. And that, for the PCAOB, is a record-breaking year. Congratulations to the PCAOB, making a lot of money to fund something. Where does the Jay? Do you have any idea where does the PCAOB fine money go? Is it like does it go to
I
Social Security or something?
I was just going to ask you the same thing. What do they
Yeah, I
do
don't
with
know.
that money? They should.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe it probably rolls back into somebody's bonus at the PCAOB,
probably. Yeah.
but who knows? That's probably something to look up. It's probably a public record, so
Okay.
I may do some searching with that.
We will let you know next week.
Yeah, maybe, assuming I can go figure it out. But the PCAOB is also getting some pushback. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, maybe now a month ago. The PCAOB had attempted to issue some new requirements on audit firms related to their firm engagement metrics related to audit work, and they're getting some pushback. So no surprise there that the big audit firms don't like all these extra metrics that they're having to include. Now, I mentioned that at the time, actually, is like this is kind of a lot of extra information that you need to include, and I'm not sure how valuable it is. So I'm not surprised that they're getting some pushback on this, and it will be really interesting to see exactly how it plays out. Because the PCAOB has what they want, and they ask for what they want, and they typically get what they want because they are who they are. And so it's interesting to see people pushing back on that, and then of course, like I mentioned, it is a bigger workload for those audit firms to be able to fill out all of this information at that time. So I'm not surprised to see pushback, and I will be interested to see what the resolution is for those extra metrics and reporting from the audit firms. Now, in additional other accounting news, not related to the PCAOB, but our friends at the FASB. We talked a couple weeks ago about the disaggregated data that they want from an expense perspective. They issued some extra clarifying guidance around what that interim period is for when those things are effective. But more interestingly, I think the FASB has reached out to say, what should we do now? And so they've made all of these changes. They've updated leasing. They've updated revenue recognition. They've done all of these different things to try to align U.S. GAAP with international standards to try to make them more comparable, make accounting a little bit easier, make reporting on that accounting a little bit more clear. So you have these extra layers of guidance and information related to companies that are issuing financial statements. And now they want to see what's most popular. So the FASB has actually reached out to say, what do you want us to do next? So if you have any thoughts about things that reporting and financial reporting that really grind your gears, or that you think needs to be improved or hasn't been changed since we got onto the clarified standards, maybe write up a cool little letter to the FASB and tell them that this is a thing that's important to you. This is your chance. So we'll see how that goes. And that, Jay, was the accounting news for this week. And then finally, in tech news, both things that I saw that were tech related this week kind of fell under the same umbrella. And this may be a category that I start to consolidate things into going forward as well. And that is that there are companies that are expanding their capabilities by acquiring other companies. And so in this week's news, Caseware acquired Caseware, which is an audit platform that allows auditors to maintain their engagement records all in one place, easy to access remotely and that kind of thing. Really useful tool for an auditor. They have acquired Lease Java, which allows them to incorporate some 842 activity right into their platform and their program. So again, this company is an audit tool, right? They're working with this other company that can be an audit support tool, and working to make those things come together. So shout out to Caseware for trying to provide some extra functionality. And then on the tax side, Jay, this was a big one. I didn't realize SafeSend was this big, but Thomson Reuters, whoever they are, whatever those guys are, Reuters, they acquired SafeSend. And they acquired SafeSend, Jay, for $600 million, which is gigantic. But what that does, what SafeSend, and Jay, you can correct me if this is wrong, because I've never used SafeSend. I'm not familiar with it. But my understanding is that it's the last leg of the filing process. They try to make it as easy as possible to get your tax returns over the finish line and off to the IRS. And so it makes sense for a big company like Thomson Reuters to acquire a company like this, because they have lots of different programs that allow you to do tax related work. Jay, do you have any experience with this or on either side?
Well, I've never used Thompson. I've never
Okay.
used UltraTax.
Okay.
SafeSend I have used, and I believe we are going to be using it moving forward.
No, there you go.
Yeah. I'm very curious if Thompson's going to bury it in their products and you know,
And not let people use it
pull it
anymore.
out of the market. So
Yeah.
that'd be interesting to see. But
Yeah,
it's a
and we
great
talked about
product.
we talked about that on I can't remember if it was on this show or if it was on the e-commerce hour of like the
Yeah.
potential downside of AI in the
Yeah.
marketplace is something like that where there's
Yeah.
a really good product and a big company buys it up and then just
Yeah. For
buries it
sure.
in their tool and doesn't let anybody else use it. So hopefully Thomson Reuters does not do that.
Yeah.
But because this product is a good product, right? It was worth $600 million. Let's hope it was. Um, yeah, so hopefully they will continue to let that be utilized on the
Yeah.
side, and then just incorporate that more directly into their
Mm-hmm.
own product offering.
Yeah.
Jay, did
Well,
I?
the thing about it, it organizes the delivery, but it also allows for payments, and you can
Oh
do your
yeah,
payments through it. You could do your estimated payments for the next year in it. It does a really good job of keeping you organized. So it's really good software.
yeah, yeah. Well, let's hope it continues to stay available for sure. Then, given all of that information, Jay, did I miss any tech news or anything that you saw this week that we didn't talk about here?
No, I think you got it. I think we talked about Bench getting saved by
Yeah,
employer.com. And,
I
and what you just said made me think about it again
yeah,
because I can't see employer.com running an accounting software and an accounting
right.
software. I can
Company.
see them wanting it for the IP and integrating that product into their product and
Right.
running with it. So, well, future will tell us what's going to happen there, but that's my
That's right.
prediction. So,
Yeah, definitely a thing to continue to watch. And obviously, whatever the result is there after it finally does shake out, is going to
yeah,
have a pretty big impact on the marketplace more broadly. I think
for sure.
no matter what happens. And so Jay, that's the news. That's this week's news. On to our main discussion
Yeah,
topic today.
nice.
So, well, see, firm owners, they often juggle the heavy demands of running a business, managing relationships, staying compliant with regulations, and on top of that, lead a team, all while trying to I don't know, be a parent, have a glass of wine in the evenings, like have a personal life, right? That can be really challenging and leads to lots of burnout. We talked about that around this time, around this time last year, Jay, about your personal story related to that.
Yeah, it was a
Um,
little later because it was about the time I took off and
yeah,
got. It was about our vacation time last year, so it was
yeah.
midsummer
Oh,
when
okay.
when
Yeah,
it
but
was very needed by both of us at that point.
right. And so that's what we're going to talk about today: the realities of burnout. We're going to try to provide some actionable strategies for achieving balance and making sure that you're able to do those types of things, to take those vacations for yourself. And then, of course, we're going to highlight the importance of mental health for both your right now and also your long term success. And so let's talk about that, Jay. Our agenda, the agenda we put together today, starts with the pressure cooker of leadership, because that it is a really challenging situation, right? You have all of these different demands from lots of different people. From as a firm owner, you're going to have lots of client relationships that you're managing. You're going to have demands from those different clients. You're going to have deadlines from those different clients, and those things can continue to push on you, even if you're not the client manager. Like a lot of times, you as the firm owner or the person that your clients know of. They may have a client, like a specific manager person, but that person's going to come to you for advice. They're going to ask you questions. All of that stuff is going to still be there. And then on top of that, a lot of times firm owners are also the business developer, and so they're either out developing business on their own or managing the team that does. And so those types of things can be like, you have outward pressure from the sales aspect, you have you have upward pressure from your team below, and then client pressure from all these different angles, and it just becomes a situation where there's just stress all around you. um, Jay, I know, like we mentioned, like this was obviously something that impacted you a
Yeah.
lot last year. Which one of those do you find is the most challenging, like, pressure point?
Well, I think it's juggling all of it.
Sure.
Especially January is a tough month because you're coming back off of a holiday, and usually things get a little jumbled up over the holidays. You come back, and you're immediately in that 1099 buzzsaw. Then
Yeah.
it's the start of tax season. Sometime between the 15th and the 25th, filing season opens, which means engagement letters got to go out, and that's a lot of admin work. And
Right.
like you said, clients are, oh, I forgot to meet with you, or I couldn't meet with you in December. Let's talk now. And now you have your calendars booked, and next thing you know, it's February 10th.
Right.
And,
Or April 10th.
or April 10th, right? And in a lot of cases, with the smaller firms, like I was prior to coming into High Rock, I was the backstop for everything, and
Right.
somebody had to be there to make sure no balls got dropped, and
Right.
that's the owner. And we're not just focusing on the owners here either. I mean, we want to talk about everybody that is feeling this pressure during this time. And you know, we've we have a team that we're working with, and our team is a bunch of skilled professionals, and
Right.
they feel the pressure. We feel the pressure, and the thing about it is now it's like, how do we deal with it on a day in day out basis? And that's what we're going to talk about moving forward over
Yeah.
the next 20-25 minutes. So
Right.
we'll get into it some more, but it's the total package that really gets you. So the
That's right.
thing about it is you have to understand your limits, your client's limits, your team's limits, your family's limits, what's going on with your kids. And, this is some of those times where it's like, oh, well, I'm not going to quite make it. So you got to figure out how to dance through that. And, it's funny, early on in my daughter's dance career, when she was, 10 to 15, every year there was a dance competition on the weekend before the tax deadline. And, explaining, it's like, I can't be there, or I can only be there part of the time. It's like, you figure it out. And I
Right.
figured it out to be there for her. And, leading up to it, it's like, I was always skeptical that I could do it, but I always figured it out. I found a way to do it, and been there. So it's important to
Yeah.
be there for your family in those important times.
Yeah.
And that competition for many years was the precursor to their national, so it was really important to them to be there. So I always try
Yeah.
to do that. So
Yeah, and so that actually talks. You're talking about one of the other points that we've got on our agenda today, which is setting boundaries. That can be really important in these types of situations because you can set those boundaries both with clients and with your team. Be that as from the owner level or from the team member level. Like, you want to be able to say, this is when I work and this is how much I'm expecting to work. You want to set that expectation with yourself and the people around you within your firm, and then also with your clients, because you don't need your clients like texting you while you're at a dance recital or a dance competition like that. Setting the expectation that you're just not going to respond in that situation,
yeah,
and setting those boundaries is really, really important. That another thing that goes along with setting boundaries is also like delegating, and that
for
is
sure.
like, that's the ability to say, like, I cannot do that for you. You need to be able to figure it out on your own, or at least bring me a basket of options, for some solutions, right?
Yep.
um, and then you can even use tools that exist, right? You can do things within like Calendly or within Teams and Slack to be able to just say like I'm unavailable, and doing that can help you to enforce those boundaries that you've set. Because if you're using Calendly and you're like I'm just not available at this time, no one can schedule meetings with you then,
Yeah.
because you're not available.
And
Um,
that's when you start getting the text messages that, hey, I
yeah,
need to talk to you. It's like,
I'll be available tomorrow morning.
exactly. And, you know,
Here's my Calendly link. You can find a time on my schedule.
so that a lot of that comes down to having the right clients and making sure
True.
that your clients are a good fit. And, you know,
Right.
we have a questionnaire at the front end of our intake form that
Right.
kind of does a measure of that. And I can remember I had a client that had my cell phone. It was 3 p.m. on Christmas Eve, calls me up, and he's like, I need to buy a truck. I need to buy it today. I'm like, well, this is not a conversation for Christmas Eve. I'm sorry. And ended up, shortly after the new year, I fired him.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, he would not take no for an answer. And it's like, this is not the time. And so
Right.
you've got to have those boundaries. And, you know, we've talked earlier in well, it might have been on the other show too, but about setting expectations when you bring on a client. So
Right.
you set those expectations up front, and you got to stick with that and make sure
Yeah.
you hold your ground when you do that. So it's important to do that. And, you know, if you lay it out, you know, when you're doing your discovery and when you're onboarding, and then when you come out of onboarding into regular normal monthly service, you know, you go through those conversations, and that's where you say, if you need something, this is when you can contact us, and we'll be back with you in, you know, business day, 24 hours, whatever, you know, whatever your cadence is. So
Right.
just be consistent and apply it consistently.
Right. And you can do that on your internal team too. So you don't have to just limit that to setting boundaries with your clients. You can also do that with your own team members of, hey, it's late at night, I'm not responding to your email or whatever it may be. Right. One thing that's important before we talk about some other strategies or other things that you can do is also being able to recognize when someone on your team or even yourself is starting to show the signs of burnout. The things to look for, right, are always being tired, so constant fatigue, irritability, and especially from team members who don't typically have that same irritability. And then more broadly, like disengagement, like just lackadaisical attitudes toward things, like that kind of stuff. Those are pretty clear signs that you or a member of your team is needs needs a little bit of a breather. And ignoring those things or not being responsive to them is just going to make the situation worse. And that's a thing that it's going to make the situation worse, both for job performance, but also, and maybe more importantly, for like the individual themselves. Like if you're feeling that stress and you're not sleeping well and you're fatigued, like that's going to really bring down your own like health. And it's important to understand like that's going to continue to be important, because if you want to enjoy the life that you're building for yourself, like you need to be able to be in good health to do so. And so it's important to not ignore those things when they're happening, not just with yourself but also with those around you. And so sometimes even asking that question of like, this isn't the way you'd normally respond to this type of situation. What's going on? Let's talk about it a little bit more, and make sure that you have those understandings of those warning signs and what you and your team are feeling. That especially as you come into a period around deadlines becomes that much more important, because the only way that you can start to help any of those problems where people are feeling overwhelmed in conjunction with burnout like this is by asking for help and helping them, because you can utilize yourself and your team to be able to relieve some of that stress and workload, and also communicate to your team like, this is why you shouldn't be feeling this way, or these are the things that we can do right now to be able to make sure that you're going to be in good shape in the long run.
Yeah. So what you said there is exactly what happened to me last year.
Mm,
I started getting short. You know, my
yeah.
daughter, my wife would ask me a question, and I just, really short and abrupt answers. And it's like, my wife is a therapist, so how are you feeling right now? What's going on? And I had to get in touch with my feelings and all of that, and
Right.
I realized what was going on.
Yeah. It is
I
very
was
easy.
having trouble sleeping.
Yeah.
I was going through a couple other things, and I was working 12 to 16 hours a day at that point because I was juggling three different things at that time.
Yeah.
And, being a pleaser, I didn't know how to say no at that point.
Mm,
And it's like, okay, we're going to start saying no. And I think you've seen that a little bit lately.
yeah.
Uh, Coming back saying, nope, can't do that for you. And, you know, it's it's made a big difference, here
Yeah.
at home and at work. And, you know, there are others that can take on the burden. You don't have to take it all on
That's right.
yourself.
And critically, one of the things that can potentially take on the burden is technology.
Yes.
And so technology can be really helpful in these types of situations because as you identify those things where you can automate and reduce the workload for both yourself and your team, um, like that, this can go just like a significant way. We've talked about that over and over on the show of how valuable automation can be, and this is one of the key areas that that's the case. Is those types of tasks, especially those that are repetitive and ongoing. Um, if you are able to make them easier to spend less time on them, that gives you the ability to get some of your time back so that you can do those things like Jay's talking about and focus on your health and focus on yourself. One other thing to consider in those types of situations, especially if it is a lower level task like that, or even some higher level tasks, sometimes your team may not have the capacity to be able to do what you need. And an option that exists, and it's not for everybody, but it's an option that exists, is outsourcing. It could be all kinds of different things, right? It could be finding a partner that you can work with to say, I'm going to do the accounting work for this client, but I'd love for you to support me in the tax work, or um, or it could be a virtual assistant who can help to schedule your meetings, to make sure your calendar is up to date, to ensure that you don't have too many meetings in the same day. All of those different types of things. Someone who can help you to make blog posts or to do things through your social media accounts, so that you as the person who owns those types of things, you don't feel that constant burden of having to do all of that stuff. And so we talk about that a lot here on the show of or how accountants can be valuable by taking the things that firm owners are not that great at, or company owners or business owners are not that great at, and extracting them from them, like in marketing. Then like to do the bookkeeping, or if you don't like to do the tax prep, then find someone that you trust that can do that for you as well. Now you can't typically just do that at the last minute, and so that's why we're talking about it today, is because this gives you the opportunity to start planning around those types of things and making sure that you're being responsive to the things that you know that you're not going to like, and the things that you know you'll be better off not doing on your own. Jay, do you
Good
have any extra
stuff.
thoughts about technology there?
No, that's all good stuff. I couldn't have said it any better myself.
Cut it out. Cut it out. Put it on the Instagram.
Yeah.
Automate it. Um, the next tip that we're going to talk about. Actually, Jay, you alluded to it, and I think it's really valuable. Is building out your support network. That comes in lots of different ways, right? The biggest one, I think, when I think about it, and it's not actually listed in our notes here, but the biggest one that I think about is our family, right?
Hmm.
The first people that I go to when I'm having problems is my wife, and so having those people around you that you can talk to about the stress that you're feeling, that you can talk about your feelings to, Jay, like that person, those people can be really important as a first part of your support network. But you can expand that out. You can find mentors or people that you've already developed relationships with, maybe industry peers, people who are in the same position as you. You can bounce ideas off of like, hey, I'm feeling overwhelmed in this area, and this area. What do you do for these things? And that may be able to give you an idea of exactly where to go. There's also loads of different accounting support groups. I don't think of them as maybe not support groups is maybe not the term that we'd use, but there are lots of groups out there that are designated and designed to support firm owners and to be there to allow you to find those industry peers and have a different group of people to bounce those ideas off of.
Yes, it's our community. You know,
Right.
it's the people that we like to spend our time with when we're at
That's right.
conferences and things like that. You know,
That's right.
use those resources and lean on them.
That's right. And every single person that I've run into, really, if you want to ask a question, they're willing to talk to you about it.
For
They may not be able to answer it for you right then, right? Like who has that kind of availability? But they're definitely willing to like have that conversation. And so don't hesitate to reach out to those people that may be in your network. Maybe that's Jay. Maybe that's me. Maybe we can be the people that you can talk to about whatever type of problem it is that you're running into right now. And making sure that you're willing and able to have open conversations around mental health and your personal well-being, like that's really important as well, and particularly in the accounting community, because I think the forward-looking people that are in the accounting community are starting to talk about this more frequently, but encouraging that discussion across everyone in the accounting community, I think, can be really important for going forward as well. Jay, do you have any other thoughts on support networks and making sure that you've got a good one built out for yourself?
You know, I think you covered that pretty well as well. You know, you know, I really think your family is some of the best people to deal with. And also, you know, I know for us, we have some people above us at High Rock that we can lean on, and I know
Yeah.
we have as well there. So, you know, those of us that have been there and in the trenches, we can be a good sounding board. Those of us that have been through the burnout and know the signs and how to get out of it, you know, it's good, and reach out, you know, definitely. Um, and you know, there are a few things we're going to talk about, I believe, next. Some personal things to do. So
Right.
you know, I think some of that is some of the biggest things that we could do for ourselves. So when we get
Yeah.
there, I have plenty to talk about.
Right. So let's then a couple strategies that we want to highlight for you at least are time blocking. Right. So if you're not familiar with time blocking, that's setting like a dedicated set of time for certain tasks, certain work, certain whatever it might be. I actually do this in a very casual way with my own life because I leave work at a specific set of time. I go pick up my child from her school, and then I'm spending the rest of my evening with my daughter. It's the only time that I get to see her during the day, outside of a little bit in the morning before we take her to school. And so for me, that's a time blocked time. When I go pick up my daughter, I am not doing anything work related until after she is in bed. And then if I've got work that I need to do, I will come back after. But that time is my family time, and it's really important for me to be able to dedicate that time to my family that way. And it's a really easy utilization of time blocking.
And
Um,
something that you look forward to all day. So
all day.
it's like that carrot that's out there, and you're just reeling it in. You know.
That's right.
So yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah. It's also really important to incorporate both mindfulness practices and if you think about when I think about mindfulness, I think about meditation or maybe about journaling, that kind of thing. But another practice like this is exercise. So making sure that you're doing something for your health, even if it's just taking a walk, can be really, really important, and especially at this time of year, because in so much of the United States, right, it's wintertime,
Yep.
it's cold outside, it's dark outside. Like actually being active helps your body to feel better. Now, I don't know all the reasons and science around that, but making sure that you have the ability to do that is really important. Um, and so you can incorporate that through time blocking as well. You could block time around your lunchtime, block time in the afternoon, block time in the mornings, whatever it might be. But making sure that you're making time for this activity to be able to focus on your body and yourself is extremely important. And I don't know all the science behind it, but I have read like a million things that I think, and Jay, you can correct me if this is like really stupid sounding, but being active and using your body inherently has like positive impacts on your mood, on the way that you feel, on your like your overall well-being.
Yeah.
So making sure that you're doing something like that can be really, really important.
Yeah. Movement helps get endorphins kicking, and the
Right.
endorphins is what gets your body moving and gets your brain in that really good place. And
Right.
so for me, and so I feel lucky this time of year because I'm in Florida. So and the one thing is I can't move my desk outside because if I could, I would. And
Sure.
I'm here, and it's like I really wish I could do that, but usually this time of year I start my day with a 30-minute walk first thing in the morning,
Yeah.
and get it just gets things moving in the right direction. Get the blood flowing, get things pumping, clear your head. I will listen to some podcasts or
Yeah.
whether it's accounting and Blake and David or NASCAR related,
Yeah.
depending on what day it is. It might be the Dale Jr. recap from the weekend. Might want listen to that, and then I just immediately come in and get an hour or two of work done. And by that
Right.
time, sun's coming up, and it used to be a lot easier back in the day when my daughter was here. It was time. Okay, she's going to school. It's time to get up and get moving. And what I would do is get up and at least once an hour get up and move around. And if I had calls scheduled, if I did not have to be here, I would do my calls walking as well. And that the different change of scenery, getting out of the office, getting the fresh air, and then just being out in the sunshine, it helps. It puts you in a better state of mind.
Yep.
And the other thing I love doing is taking a break. And usually, if I'm working and I'm head down, I have music on, and I will take my break. I will put a different type of music on,
Hmm.
and it just shifts the mindset a little bit. Most of the
Interesting.
time when I'm working, I am listening to 80s or 90s rock.
Sure.
And a lot of times I'll go outside and I'll put on some of today's more uh, hipper music, or some of the
Contemporary music.
pop, yeah, or some of the uh, poppier country. And
Oh,
that
okay.
way
Yeah. Sure.
it breaks. It puts you in a different mindset. And
Right.
I will do something completely different than what I was doing, and I'll come back in, turn the music back up, and jump right back into it.
Yeah.
And it really it breaks up the day, puts you in a different mindset, and it's kind of like a reset. Like once every hour or two, just do
Yeah.
that. And the other thing, when I was head down, I would forget that it was time to eat, and
Yeah.
it would be 3 in the afternoon. It's like I haven't eaten anything all day.
Yeah. What was I
I
doing
I
here?
drank 4 pots of coffee, but I hadn't eaten anything all day. So it's
Right.
important. Make sure you feed yourself because your brain needs the nutrients to function.
That's right. That's right. And you can incorporate that into your own schedule the same way that we've talked about all of these other things.
Yep.
That is another thing that I do in my day, right? As my office here is in the second story of my house. And so we don't have a refrigerator or anything up here. So if I want to go eat, I have to go downstairs. If I want to refill my water, I have to go downstairs to do it as well. And so that makes for me a very nice and easy break. I can go downstairs. I am refocusing the same way that Jay's talking about. I can make a smoothie bowl or a salad or whatever it is that I'm eating for lunch that day, or fill up my water. Make sure that I'm staying hydrated. Also important. Um, and it just is a short little like, all right, I'm out of that, and now I'm going to get back into it, and I'm going to let myself like be active for a minute, take the dogs out back, let them run around, that kind of thing. There's a lot of different things that you can incorporate that way. um, it's also really important to just like more broadly just detach from work. I like I mentioned, my office is here on the second floor. When I go to get my daughter, like I am out of here. So I don't. They are not connected. I don't see them together anymore after that, right? Unless I needed to come back and do something else. And so being able to like have that cutoff can be really important. It's also can be really important, and I know that it isn't as practical as you'd like for it to be during this part of the year. But sometimes just saying, I'm going to take this weekend off and I'm going to focus on my family, or I'm going to focus on catching up on a show I wanted to watch, or whatever it may be. Like taking a weekend off and enjoying the whole weekend for yourself can be really important in helping you to recover and recuperate as well. And another thing, and we don't really talk about it that much. And Jay, you and I are probably really bad at this, but a digital detox, right? If you were to like actually set your phone down and like get away from computers and machines for a little while, like that can be really important for you. And if as we head into the beginning of the year here, that it may be the best time to start really thinking about that type of thing.
Yeah, for sure. You said your office is on the second floor. My office is right off my kitchen. So
Mm,
it's right there in my face every day. But there are weekends where I will not go in it. I just stay away from it.
that's right.
And it's like, just stay away. I just try to, I
Close
wouldn't
the
call
door.
it a digital detox, but it's definitely an
Work
office
detox.
detox.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So,
No, and it's a really important thing to do. Now, if you can't do that, or if you need extra resources, there are other things that are available, right? Like there are therapy options, and I know that gets a lot of stigma here, specifically in the United States, and also to like to men more broadly. Like therapy kind of has a negative connotation to it, and it shouldn't, because it can be really important. Because talking to someone like Jay's talked about, right, is really important to be able to like work through your feelings, to understand maybe some strategies that you can use, that kind of thing. Therapy can be really valuable for anybody and in any situation. And there are loads of therapy options out there, and groups that are therapy groups that are even tailored specifically to business owners or to
yeah.
like professionals, right? You could also have coaching sessions. The same concept is pretty similar there, or other just online support groups. Maybe those are those same accounting groups that we talked about before, where you can use that as maybe online therapy, that kind of thing. There are some other association and organizational support tools that are out there. Now, I haven't gone and looked at everything that like the Dallas CPA Society or the Texas CPA Society has to offer, but if you're in a situation where you feel like you need to have that kind of conversation, research those tools. The AICPA has loads of different things that are out there and available for accountants and professionals, and so do all of those other societies around the way. I am certain. So make sure that you understand that those things exist and explore them, and then also think about what your workplace offers. I know a lot of workplaces offer some kind of employee assistance program
Okay.
that can support both coaching and mental health therapy of all kinds of different kinds. So be aware of the options that are available to you, and don't just dismiss them. Be really thoughtful about whether that's the right thing for you. And then finally, we'll wrap up today by talking about how, if you, especially as a leader in your firm, if you're prioritizing mental health and that balance, how that can set a really positive example for your team. And so, if you're doing that stuff, and if you're what's the phrase, Jay? If you're walking the walk,
Yeah.
or like living the life
Yeah.
that you want to support, that's going to permeate your firm's culture. That's going to make everybody feel that same way of like, this is what's important to us. Um, by building a flexible and supportive work culture that values that well-being, you'll be able um, to do those things for yourself. And so it can be really important to set that example, because if you don't, the people on your team, like they're not going to either. And so it is really important to be the person that you want your team to be. Jay, any final thoughts around mental health here?
Yeah, I have two. The first one is schedule vacations around the deadlines. Get to that deadline and get that time away. It's really important. For
Right.
me, it's always that September deadline, and it's that trip for me is going to to Bristol to the NASCAR weekend,
Oh yeah,
and
right.
that for me is, first of all, if you're a NASCAR fan, Bristol's the best place to go, but it is like the ultimate release because you're there and it's just so much energy, and you get to clear your head because number one, you're breathing in rubber and and fuel fumes, but it's just amazing just sitting there and doing that. So for me, that's my release. The other thing is, like you have your bowling that you like to do, so
Yep.
you have a release there. For me, there's a couple dance dads. I'm almost a year removed from it, but we still meet every other week for coffee,
Oh,
and
that's great.
it's a way to just talk things through, and it's usually about this time of day, and just go and pull out of work and go have a chat and talk about your problems and help with other people's problems, and maybe it's not problems, just have a good old
Yeah.
chat about what's going on in life.
Well, yeah.
So
Right. You can
just
you can celebrate
yeah,
wins,
exactly.
and and all of that stuff. And I think that is that's a great way to leave it. Right. You can build community in a lot of different places.
Hmm.
You can build community in your workplace. You can build community in the professional space that we have, and you can also build community within your neighborhood or within the other groups that you participate in.
For
And
sure.
those support groups truly end up being the best thing about life. I've been thinking about this a lot lately of like the way that you spend your time is such a critical indicator of what's important to you. And you don't want to look back on what you've done with your life and say the thing that was important to me was doing tax work or doing accounting work. You want to look back on your life and say, I helped people, I helped the folks around me, I helped myself, I enjoyed my life. And the best way to do that is by taking care of yourself and taking care of those around you as well.
There you go.
Um,
That's it.
so make sure that you're doing that, and build a plan to be able to do so. And that's kind of the final thought here is, like Jay mentioned, planning vacations, planning events, making sure that you're making time for yourself, actively making time for yourself and those that you care about, is the only way that you're going to be able to do it. And
For
it's
sure.
important, it's critical, and you should definitely do it as we get into 2025. Jay, I know that over the New Year's week, I know you were pretty busy with being sick and some family things. Did you get some time over the weekend to play around with any automations, or were you just dying?
Yeah, no, I did not, and you can see I'm coughing, and yeah, this time of day it really gets me. So
Oh
sorry
yeah,
if yeah, it was distractive, but no, not much. But jumped in yesterday and noticed that one of our automations was not working.
mm,
And so one thing I would recommend is making sure you have a plan to check some of those things and have some
yeah,
controls around some of that to make sure that those automations are working. So right
right,
now I'm working on moving a couple of our automations from Zapier over to make.com,
yeah,
and working through that. So yeah, I'll
yeah.
give that a
That is
shout
a
out.
good that is a automation reminder, because the automations can break, and when they do, you don't always know that they have. And so it
Yeah,
is really important to build out some strategy around how you manage your automations and how you're reviewing that they're continuing to work
yep.
properly. And as automations become more like, I don't know whatever the word is, right, seeped into society,
More integrated
you'll want
into our
to, yeah,
lives.
more,
Yeah,
yeah, that's right, as automations become more integrated into your lives, that's a great way to say it, Jay. That you'll want to continue to make sure that they're working properly. So at the beginning of the year, it's a great time to do that, right? We're at the
yep,
beginning of the year. It's you're about to run through using all your automations as you
for
serve your
sure.
clients over the next few months. So make sure that they are working properly, and do some tests and reviews to make sure that they're doing what you need for them to do, so that they don't break on you. Jay, any other things to talk about today?
No, I think at this point, let's see what happens after post January 20th, and
Yeah,
look at the tax side of things. And
right,
I believe tax season opens about that same time, so it's well tax filing opens about that time
right.
because the IRS shuts down their e-file system for renovation. So
Yep.
uh, yeah,
So we'll be on the lookout for everything that happens here over the next few weeks as well, and we'll be right here with you and coming back next week to talk about something else that's important, and then whatever news happens between now and then. So thank you all for taking the time to spend with us today. Um, make sure that you are dedicating time like this to yourself on a going forward basis, and we'll see you in the next one.
see you next
Bye,
Tuesday.
everyone.
Bye.